Welcome to the Sedona Community Forum. I'm Linda Shook, Associate Dean at the Sedona Center and Director of OLLI, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute of Sedona and Verde Valley. The program is sponsored by the Lifelong Learning Division of Yavapai College.
Great, thanks, Linda. My name is Paul Friedman. I'm a facilitator, a volunteer at OLLI, and Linda and I are co-leading this series of interviews with local leaders who are involved in adapting their organizations to meet the needs of our community during this pandemic.
Our aim today is to give you an inside or backstage look at what local leaders are doing during this unusual time.
Our guest of honor for this program is Tina Red, Yavapai College's new Dean of the Verde Valley campus and the Sedona Center. I understand that you very recently began assumed this position, and no sooner did you do that, but I wonder if you even had any time to administer Yavapai College in its usual mode of operation, or were you immediately thrust into the shelter in place and social distancing phenomena that you're dealing with now?
Well, I began on March. There's something about this pandemic that makes you lose track of time. So I started on March 2nd, and that was a week before Yavapai College had spring break. And so I was able to work for a full week, moved into my office, went on spring break, and during that time I went back to Oregon. I'm from Central Oregon. Went back, picked up some of my belongings, came back on March 9th, and we extended spring break and we began the move to online classes. So really the only face-to-face interactions I was able to have with both my colleagues, the faculty, staff, and Linda at the Sedona Center was during the interview. Luckily, they did an amazing job with my interview and gave me a lot of time to meet folks. But yeah, I had exactly a week. And the introduction most of my faculty got from me was, how are we going to move your class online? And wow. The staff were given notices that they needed to figure out ways to work from home. So.
Well, what role have you played in this a period of adjustment? What is your day? What are your days like, and how do you manage what sort of hurdles have come up, and how have you tried to work with them?
Well, initially, it was of course very awkward to try to figure out how to remove people from their office spaces, people who had been sitting in their office spaces much longer than I had been there. But we had great leadership at the presidential and vice presidential. All of the vice presidents actually were very helpful in giving guidance for how we were to proceed. And so I just followed their direction. And what that mainly involved was letting people know that health was the priority of the college, and that we were doing this for both staff, faculty, but also especially for our students. So we had deadlines. Some of them were quite abrupt. Sometimes people were told that they had 3 days to get things together and transition home, but they were told that they could take their computers, their office chairs, anything in their office that would be helpful. And they were also going to get technical help at home. That worked through about mid-March. We finally worked out a plan where we were going to keep the library open. We thought that student service was necessary, essential. And we kept the testing center open for another week. But by the third week of March, we were pretty much closed down. And during that last week of March, it was myself in the Dean's Suite at the Verde campus and the testing coordinator. And once her last day was a Friday, and I packed up and moved out too.
Wow. Yeah. So it's pretty much a ghost town now.
It is. It's a ghost town. They recently put out a call to pick up all of our plants, and it was really heartbreaking. You really, especially for someone like me who I came from a branch campus, and the Verde campus and the Sedona Center are just beautiful facilities, and I just wanted to hit the ground running. And it was, at first, it had the feeling of running right into a brick wall. But as things rolled out, as Zoom meetings started to pick up, as we figured out that the college had no intention of closing, we were just doing business in a different way. I really have started to feel that if I want to look at the bright side of things, I am learning about procedures and personnel and the folks that I work with. I'm learning it in a very ordered way, as opposed to sitting in my office and having people just dropping in. It's you know, I'm really getting to know the systems at the college, and I think when this is over, I'm going to be in a better position to move things along quickly, because I was brought here to increase enrollment, to work with the community on programming. And so, I'm getting to know the community virtually, and in some way, it's ordered.
Yes. Well, I assume some programs adapted more easily than others to online instruction, and there have been some that it's just more of a change, more difficult to channel their usual work into this particular medium. Do you have any sense of which of your programs were very conducive to virtual learning, and which are for which ones it's a harder fit?
Yes, absolutely. We could break it down into the programming that you can get most of the information from a text, and interaction with an instructor virtually is still a conversation. Those types of classes, English, history, most of your transfer courses to larger universities, those were relatively smooth. The next, if we wanted to tier it, the next tier of difficulty would be the hard sciences. So if you were taking a biology or a chemistry class and there was a classroom component, that's easily transferable. The lab component, a little bit more challenging. The science faculty have been amazing and innovative. They've created, we had lab kits, they've managed to distribute those, and they're really working to try to give students as close of the experience in the lab and the learning that we can. But the third tier and the most challenging types of courses to translate online, and in fact, some of these courses, it's just not possible. It's not possible to transfer aviation, which happens over in Prescott, into an online environment. Here in the Verde Valley, the two challenges on our campus have been, of course, culinary at the Sedona Center. It's not only heartbreaking to move out of a beautiful facility, it's also difficult for students to learn virtually skills when the chef could be standing right next to them, showing them anything from how to manipulate dough, cut a certain way. But he's doing a great job. He's showing them online. They're working in their kitchens at home. At one point, he even was meeting them in the parking lots of various, like at the Safeway in Cottonwood, the parking lot of the Sedona Center, and he had created recipe packs for them with the ingredients that they would need to do their work at home. And so the faculty have just gone above and beyond the call of duty to get the students what they need. The other program here in the Verde Valley that has been challenged is viticulture and enology, our winemaking program. That program is built so that students not only learn the science of winemaking, but they also work in the vineyard and they work at the Southwest Wine Center. And the restrictions on bars and restaurants, Michael Pierce, the director of that program, decided that he was going to offer curbside and delivery service only. So he closed the face-to-face portion of the wine center. And we are very concerned about the grapes that are coming in and how they'll get picked and what kinds of protocols that we're going to have to engage in. But yeah, those hands-on programs, it was very disappointing to the students because they love their programming, culinary and winemaking. And you can't blame them. Who wouldn't love cooking and winemaking?
Sure.
We have those programs here.
Well, the first transition was from in-person instruction to online contacts. And do you see another one coming up of some sort of modified return to normal, some slow, gradual easing into a new stage of this reacting appropriately to the situation?
I do. I have to say, I was relieved by the governor's proclamation yesterday because I think it would be very difficult in an academic setting to turn the ship quickly. And it looks like we will transition slowly. The main thing for us is really thinking about what is best. We are essential in that education is essential, but we are not essential in terms of, we can be put on hold, we can modify. We're not a hospital. And so we are engaging in discussions for how we can return safely. But we already have plans for summer that will be completely online. That doesn't mean that some faculty and staff won't have access to their offices and their workplaces as the summer unrolls. We also have a plan for fall that we will revisit July 1st and figure out how we need to modify. My guess is that we will have a heavy online presence in the fall, and we will supplement that presence with safe face-to-face practices. And so we are right now trying to figure out what those safe practices look like. We want faculty input so that faculty aren't being asked to do things that they're uncomfortable with. And we also want to follow the guidance that's given to us at the state and federal levels. But I can just say at the college, I've been very impressed by the way that we're thinking way into the future. We've had conversations about what we might do, for instance, over the discussions of a recurrence and a spike again in the fall and the winter. And so we're giving innovation grants. We're using the CARES Act money to prepare our faculty so that they can turn on a dime. We definitely do not want ever to experience feeling like we are unprepared for an emergency like this again. Hopefully that's the entire nation and not just Yavapai College.
Yes, well, I imagine that this is a critical situation for post-secondary institutions all over the country. Is there a network of people in your type of position that you stay in touch with that are so that you learn from and compare your response to what's being done in other communities, getting exchange of ideas and best practices, for example?
Well, certainly at the presidential level and the vice presidential level, there are networks and daily conversations going on. My network is a little bit more informal. You know, I have friends who work at ASU. I have an entire network of colleagues along the West Coast where I'm from. I think that almost everyone is concerned about the fiscal situation. What are we going to do in terms of keeping afloat? And I will say that my colleagues in Oregon are a little bit more concerned about that than I am. Yavapai College is in a good financial state. They've been good stewards with their budget. And the message that we've been given is that we are going to keep all of our full-time positions. There will be no furloughs at this point. We may have to redirect people's energies into areas that have need when their areas are dormant for now. But it's just been a very proactive and affirming sort of the feeling that we have a safety net, and that safety net is our employer. And I think that that's very unique right now in education.
Yes, I'm sure that's comforting to many people. I am just curious. I was going to ask, excuse me, since the campus is closed, is there something? Is there a way that the grounds and the cafeteria and the support services, receptionists, and are those people? Is their work redirected to other purposes?
So it's different on the Verde Valley than Prescott, because Prescott has certain areas open because there are still a few students at their dorms and food service is contractual. Here in the Verde Valley, our facilities folks are still working. We have a brand new building opening next month, and it's a science building, and some of our skilled trades will go into that building. So our facilities people are still working. Our grounds maintenance is still operating, but all of the other student services have come to a halt. It's not that the service itself has stopped. It's to access the service, you would reach someone virtually, either through the phone or on a link through your computer. So we don't have food services right now, but I can tell you our facilities department, our IT folks, they're all very busy because it's a state-of-the-art building that's going to be ready for classes in the fall.
Well, excuse me, I got something in my throat. I'm sure that your own activities have expanded during this time. Has your work life, your personal life been affected by this situation? Is it different than it was in your previous position? And how you hope it will be someday in this position?
I think my work life as a new dean hasn't altered as much as I would have expected, because it's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of updates, and it's a lot of planning for the fall. And I'm also in the process right now finishing up the year, getting to know the faculty at the Verde campus through performance review process, which for me really is about getting to know them and figuring out how I can better support them. But personally, this has been such a unique challenge. Part of my job description is that I live in the Verde Valley, and that's just a unique thing to have in a job description. But and so I immediately got here and started looking for a house. And in a pandemic, looking for a house is just such a strange experience. We also, because the district on this side of the mountains is so large, while I was waiting for my home purchase to happen, I had planned to live in different locations throughout the valley. So I started in Jerome and lived there for a month. I'm currently in Sedona, and I'll be here for a little over a month. But I'm getting to know these communities when they are shut down. At first, I thought that was a disadvantage, and then I realized that the people who are left in those communities are the people who actually live there. And so Jerome was just, that community is wonderful, and it was so fun to walk the streets of all these closed businesses and see locals talking about what was going to happen next. And then we got to Sedona, and the grocery stores are still open. I thought, how on earth are there so many grocery stores to support such a small community? And then I realized, it's this influx of thousands of people who come to visit, but they're not here right now. And so I, in a way, I don't wish this lockdown on Sedona, but I'm so lucky to be in Sedona when I can walk the trails and find parking and just enjoy it in a state that it typically isn't in. And then after this, I'll finally get to close on my home. in Clarkdale. So I live very close to the Verde Valley campus, but the delays have been, a challenge. It's buying a home in a pandemic. I couldn't see the home for over a month. I just saw it last week.
Wow.
So I can say that one of the biggest changes in my personal life is it's the first time I've bought a home without actually going inside of it.
My goodness, my goodness. Well, thanks for that insight into your personal experience. That's a wonderful thing you're doing of visiting the various communities in an extended way, so you get to know them as a resident and as a local. Thank you so much for being as devoted to integrating effectively into our Verde Valley world. I'm sure we could go on talking about many other things, but our time is beginning to run out. So I want to thank you very much, Dean Tina Red, new arrival to the Verde Valley and to Yavapai College. We appreciate so much learning about your adventures in being an administrator here during this very difficult period. It's inspiring to know how flexibly and capably you and your staff are adapting your efforts to the demands that you're now facing. And we feel comfortable knowing that Yavapai College in this side of the mountain is in very good hands for the foreseeable future. So thank you, and we'll be signing off. Linda, did you want to conclude?
I did. We want to thank you again, Dean Red, for being on today. And thank you, Paul Friedman, for putting together this series at the Sedona Community Forum, where we can talk to local leaders about how they're handling things during the pandemic. You can access many of these interviews. They're at our OLLI at Sedona Verde Valley website, on our Facebook, and probably the easiest way to go is just through our OLLI at Sedona Verde Valley YouTube channel, and you can view everything there. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. Signing off.